Hey guys, welcome back for more tutorials. My name is Magnet, and we're going to be talking about using ghosts in TvP today. Mostly we need to talk about the biggest component of using ghost and getting any sort of good fights in TvP, and that is getting the right engagement angles. And people talk about that all the time, and it seems a little bit vague. In TvP especially, it's all about baiting their army to a position that they don't want to be in, but that they have to be in because you're forcing it. So for example, let's think of an idea of you're attacking a Protoss' third base. They have to recover to that third base, otherwise they're never going to stop it and they're going to lose a base for free and you can just walk away. While they're recovering is when they're most vulnerable to EMPs. So we're going to watch a lot of that in practice in these games. So let's go ahead and jump in here and we'll talk about that as it happens. Now of course you need to understand that you can't just add on ghosts willy-nilly. They're mostly just to counter Templar play, but they can be mixed in just as a general unit. So we want to watch the Terran, by the way. We don't want to hear those Protoss sounds. So you need to understand when to add them, and a lot of players add them at different times. Some players don't add them at all. But honestly, if you do add them, and if you add them at the right time, then you'll have a huge advantage, and it's all really important as far as knowing when to do that. I think one of the better ways to play TvP is to play a very counter-based TvP, and that is be very knowledgeable of your opponent's timings and what's possible at what time. So if you figure, we'll fast forward to that point in the game here, we'll kind of note the little things that are going on in the game as they happen, but Tage just opening up with 2 Marines and an expansion, going into a factory, probably going to be for some either Hellion or mine play, nothing too crazy, and it looks like it is going to be a mine, possibly a mine drop. So none of this is terribly important to getting ghosts. We'll wait until the point where we need to start talking about timings and when you need to be checking on seeing what the Protoss is doing. So if we understand Protoss and we understand all the different times that things can come out, by the way, just a little bit of drops coming down, nothing too important happening thus far. Tage just rallying forward. And it looks like the opener here from Maxed is going to be Colossus. So let's think about this from a Protoss perspective, which is one of the easiest ways to understand how to counter something. So if the Protoss is going for any sort of later game tech, they're going to be showing tech at no later than probably 9:30 or 10 minutes is when you can start to see that. Sometimes you'll see it earlier, sometimes you won't, and it can be a little bit hard to see if they open up with something like Blink or an earlier, like one base type of attack and then transition later on. But in a normal game, about 10 minutes is when you want to start thinking about, do I either need to add Vikings or do I need to add Ghosts to counter what I'm seeing from the Protoss? By that 10-minute point, they should really be starting to get into either Templar or Colossus tech. Staying on charge and blink and stuff like that is just not going to be a thing because your units are way too powerful against their just gateway units, assuming you have the equal amount of macro and unit production and whatnot. So let's make a safe rule for producing ghosts. The safe rule to start producing ghosts is probably at about 11 or 12 minutes unless you see Colossus coming down. If you see Colossus coming down, then I would say the safe time to start producing ghosts is about 15 minutes. And this is all assuming that you're hitting the benchmarks that we talked about in the macro video. If you stay at those benchmarks, then you might need very minimal scouting information. It's either a Colossus or it's not. And if it is Colossus, then you need to wait until they start to switch into something else. And if they do call Colossus, then your immediate reaction needs to be an extra starport, so you can produce about 3 or 4 Vikings at a time. This is also assuming that you are mining on a third base. So this is going to be Colossus, but we'll eventually see the point where Tejas switches into Ghosts because Maxed starts to switch into Templar. But we'll note that when the timing that he does make these types of decisions, and usually with Colossus, they're going to at least want to go for about 2. Sometimes it's 1, but that's really weird. So at least 2 before they start to do any sort of Templar switches. And they won't start getting into that big Templar switch until, again, about 14 or 15 minutes is when your first Ghosts need to really start coming on the field. So he scans up there, he sees the Colossus, he knows now is not the time to add Ghosts. I should be thinking about countering the Colossus or just playing a little bit more greedy. So he's grabbing a third base right now. And he just needs to continue to scan and continue to wait to see the tech coming down. That scan that he just dropped was to see if he needed to start reacting to Templar switches that could be coming really fast. But like I said, they're really rare. Here's the second Colossus coming down. Most of the time Protosses will actually go for 3 or 4, but 2 can sometimes be a safe enough number. Taja actually getting a pretty decent little trade here, canceling the third base, but that's not terribly important for us right away. A little bit of a zealot run by to try to harass Taja while he's out on the map. Notice his unit production is just on Vikings right now. But we'll still, you can't just accept that, oh, he's just going to stay on Colossus forever, I should only make Vikings. You need to stay on top of your scouting and keep checking back over and over to see when you need to start making those ghosts. Either way, even if they stay on Colossus, it's not a bad play considering ghosts are just a general Protoss unit counter just to throw it down anyway. So, like I was saying, regardless of what's going on, even if they've only shown Colossus so far, grabbing those first ghosts and having them finish at about 15 minutes is not a bad time at all, because even landing EMPs on a Colossus-based army is still a good trade for you. It'll still reduce all the shields and put them at about half health, while your army should still be at pretty much full health when you engage. So this ghost timing, you can think of it as I either need ghosts out by about 11 or 12 minutes, or I need ghosts out by about 15 minutes. So if you just have that mindset and you understand how to play that based upon what the Protoss is showing, then you'll be in a really good spot. So you're starting to see the ghost production come down now. You sometimes will want to research cloak, but you can save that for a little bit later in the game if you want to save it for when you try to snipe observers with Vikings or something. Notice that he's not really showing his Vikings right now. He's just waiting for Maxed to make a bad decision. By the way, here's the Templar attack, and it's an inevitability, unless they're going for something like Phoenix Colossus, but you'll even still want ghosts against that anyway. So we'll be talking about Phoenix Colossus in another game, but even still, having the ghosts on the field is still a good application. So we do live in the era where ghosts come out EMP ready, so you don't have to research any upgrades or anything like that for it. But more importantly, you need these ghosts to give you value, and the value that you're usually going to get is by forcing Protoss to be, recovering to a position that they usually wouldn't want to be in. So let's play hypotheticals here for a second, like we were talking about when we first started talking in the video. Let's say you load up 2 medevacs, and let's say you even load up more than that, maybe 3 or 4. Let's say you load up 4 medevacs and you go drop them right here. That's going to probably force Maxed to pull most or his entire army back to his main base. And then subsequently, let's say you load up back in your medevacs, you boost them out, and you come out right here, and then you drop them all back off and you start attacking the third base. Maxed's army is probably going to be somewhere over here. Now all of a sudden, if he has to recover down to this point because you're attacking his third base, his entire army is going to be walking through this area. So if you were already setting all this up perfectly, and you had 3 or 4 ghosts here, you could EMP his entire army while his army was moving to recover to a threat over here, and your ghosts at that point would have done their job, and the subsequent fight would be really easy. So getting the Protoss army to move around and recover to places that they don't want to be is going to be your best way to land EMPs. We might not see a perfect example of that, but that should be things that you should be thinking about. Landing EMPs and dealing with Protoss armies is all about getting better positioning on them and getting them in a position that they have to recover to where your army is, and that they're walking toward you or walking beside you when you're landing your EMPs. Even still, let's watch Teja execute this. Notice that the ghosts are trailing a little bit. He hasn't quite shown them yet. There's only Archons in this mix. There's no Storm. So even landing EMPs on a Colossus-based army is going to be pretty good. We'll notice Teja's still kind of poking around a little bit, trying to figure out where he can find something. That was just a mine that died, by the way. Nothing terribly important. And we'll have to see when Teja opts to actually go in there and attack. Notice that his attack upgrade just finished, so that's a good time to center your attacks around, is whenever you get attack upgrades. Now notice this. Look how far Maxed's army is out on the map. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Now if Teja walks back over here to attack the third base, where does Maxed have to walk? He has to walk right here. If Teja has ghosts somewhere like right there, you can EMP the entire army while Teja is attacking the third base and while Maxed has to recover to that location. So looking for opportunities like this is exactly how you're going to get good ghost usage. And I think Teja should realize this sooner rather than later. And he's moving into an excellent position right now. He can get great hits on this third base. Maxed has to walk his entire army back, and this is where you should be peeling off your ghosts. You can control and click on a ghost if you don't have them on their own separate hotkey, which it looks like Teja actually does. They're on 3. You can pull these over to the side, and as he's walking toward you or as he's walking by your ghosts, wham, bam, EMPs on everything. And I really hope that that's what we're going to see here, because Teja's a good enough player to know that that's what he's supposed to do. Notice he separates his ghosts. Everything here is going to get EMP. The Archons are going to have nothing. There's going to be no force field energy. The Colossus are going to have no shields. And bam, 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 everything gets EMP'd. The ghosts die, but it doesn't matter because they got their usage out of it. Now the Vikings can kill the Colossus pretty easily, and Teja is going to get a great trade out of this because he was able to EMP so well. Notice how much easier it is for the Vikings to kill the Colossus. Yes, he got pushed back. Yes, he didn't quite kill the third base, but those are the type of trades that you need against Protoss in order to get an advantage. And you're going to get the best trades when the Protoss is at half health when they engage you all the time. So even with no Templar tech, even with very high Colossus count, assuming you had the Vikings out and assuming you got the right EMPs, decomposing an army like this is really, really simple. So now it's just Stalkers versus Stim Marines and Stim Marauders. He's waiting on his Colossus to be refilled, and they take forever to rebuild. Right now it's just gateway units against Tage's superior upgrades and superior army composition. And even when it's down to just gateway units, landing EMPs on this is going to devastate it because it's so weak. You can even see him seeking up here with the ghosts a little bit. This is the second thing that we can talk about a little bit, but this is a little more risky in normal situations. You can seek up there and make sure the army is EMP'd before you even start to take a fight. That's exactly what he's doing, so he just stims his army and attacks forward while he just lands EMPs on these ghosts. And by the time the army gets there, the Protoss army is already at half health, and the Terran army is just bouldering down on them. So you're going to see EMPs come down all over the army. There's really absolutely nothing they can do. The Zealots die almost instantly to the Marine fire. Only Stalkers left over. That's never going to do anything against Medivacs. So seeing Taja really rip apart Max Head with nice EMPs, and most importantly, it was the nice positioning over anything. So we can see this game ends in the next 20 seconds, so you can see Taja just walking all over Max Head right now. Even the one Colossus, lol, that's never going to do anything. You could just drop right on top of it. That's exactly what he's doing. Just drops all over the Colossus and it's dead. So yeah, the Ghosts really set that up, but what set it up mostly was the army positioning and forcing the Protoss to recover back to a position that they don't want to walk through, because it's going to clump up their entire army and it's going to give you great EMP potential. So let's go ahead and jump into another game here really quickly, and we'll talk about a little bit more of an even game. Taja just got a great fight and ended that game really quickly. And whoops, we don't want to be looking at that. These are my plans for my videos. You can see all the ones that should be upcoming. But let's jump into another one here. This is going to be Zest versus Maru. And this is like the pinnacle of competition between these two at this time, because Zest was the GSL champion of that season, and Maru was the GSL champion a couple seasons prior. So these guys are just gods in the Starcraft world. More specifically, of course, we're going to be focusing on Maru. And this is going to be about how to play out the Ghost scenario in longer games and their micro against Templar. So we're going to be looking at a lot of that information as we go along. This is just going to be a normal Reaper opener from Maru, nothing too wild. And again, we've talked a lot about openers. We've seen a bunch of other videos about TvP that we should all know that Reaper openers are really normal. My PC's kind of freaking out just a little bit. I don't know what's going on, but hopefully it'll stabilize a bit. So Reaper opener, should be a factory coming down, or no, that's a barracks, I'm sorry. So 2 more barracks, command center, really normal stuff here, just to start to get his bio put together. Probably want to start a bunker on the low ground, but this is Maru, he's known for taking risks like this. It's going to be a Twilight Council first, and this could probably be to start having to push off some blink play. And we've talked about that, I think, already. I believe we have, so I don't think we're going to address that too much. We should already know how to deal with blink stuff. So go back and check out the video if you're really having trouble with this particular scenario. But we're going to start talking about once Zest starts to transition off of Blink. Looks like this is a very slow, very conservative Blink play. Nothing too crazy going on here. But most importantly is the transition. And the transition off of most Blink plays is going to be Templar. Very rarely it can be Colossus, but the switches are so slow that it kind of doesn't really benefit the Protoss that much. Looks like Zest is finally getting a little bit more brave and pressing up here, but we shouldn't see too much more action happen. And trying to find good ways to deal with these Blink Stalkers is going to be ideal. Pulling some SCVs. Nothing too wild, just pushing it away fairly normally. Zest doesn't really want to lose anything. Oh, I think I remember this game. Okay. I hope this is the game, because this is a hilarious game if this is the game I'm thinking of. Yeah. This is the game where Zest is in Maru's base and just standing here for the longest time and Maru's not doing anything about it. This is so funny at how high level of play this is. You'll never see anything like this in lower leagues, and you'll only see this at the very, very top of competition, because both players know that committing either way will be a bad idea, so they're just standing here. This is so funny. But we'll fast forward up until the point where the Ghosts start to hit the field. If you want to go back and watch this, this is from the GSL Season 1, 2014, so you might enjoy watching this game. But Zest eventually realizes that he's not going to be able to do much more. Maru gets out on the map, and here's the timing. the first ghost should be looking to hit the field unless something weird happened, and something weird did happen. You open blink, which can definitely slow things down, but once the blink stalkers go home is when you need to figure out what's your transition. Transition either has to be Colossus or Storm as soon as possible, and if I can see any Colossus or if I can see the transition coming down, then I'm going to know. But if he ever scans and sees his Templar archives, he's going to know for sure, and he can start his ghost right away. So it's just a matter of time before Maru figures out what's going on. Of course, Maru does play this a little differently. He's known to be a lot more aggressive and not as reliant on tech. Look how high level and funny this is that Zest is just waiting for Maru to commit up there before he destroys the rocks. Such high level play here, but Storm is on the way here from the Protoss. The Terran really needs to figure this out. One way you can buffer, especially against Storm plays, is mines, which we are going to be talking about here in the near future, but mines are a good way to help zone out against zealots and storms and stuff like that a little bit better. So if you're not absolutely sure what's going on, you can produce mines, but honestly I would start mixing in ghosts right about now, or at least be scanning aggressively to figure out what's going on. Maru's not the most amazing player to learn from as far as his builds and his decisions, because the things that he does are just unnatural. People shouldn't be able to do things that he does. So it's pretty wild stuff, but I really want to see when he starts incorporating his ghost control, because that's mostly what this is going to show off. Rather than builds, rather than strategies, it's just going to show off how to apply them once you get into these fights. So Maru is known for picking a location and just attacking there over and over and over and over until the game ends, and that's basically what we're going to see once he decides to come back and reclaim his territory. So back at home, he's starting to realize that the Templar transition is on the way. He did scan and see the Templar archives, so he knows that ghosts should be necessary fairly soon, so he's starting to add those in. It is a little bit slow, by the way, because the storm is already done. So until ghosts are done, or until you have a lot of mines, and maybe you can get some really great position with those mines, you can't expect to do a lot. You should probably wait for your ghosts before you start doing anything else. Oh wow, whoops. I went to touch my keyboard to make it go faster with that right hand, and move my mouse all over the place, but starting to see that the Colossus transition is beginning, and this is an interesting thing with ghosts, especially with Templar first, is that there is a window when they're transitioning into Colossus that you can kill them, assuming you get the right EMPs, because the Colossus won't start to matter until they have about 2 on the field. But even if you see this, you can start preparing by throwing down an extra starport, or maybe by this stage of the game, 17 or 18 minutes, you can just throw down the second starport kind of blindly. Don't produce Vikings blindly until you start to see Colossus, but you can at least be ready for the switch, because sometimes these switches out of Storm into Colossus can be really wild, and before you know it, there could be 2 or 3 Colossus on the field, because they have 2 or 3 robos, and it can be that aggressive, so it's something you need to know. But let's start watching these battles unfold, as the first ghosts are starting to come out. There are 3 on the field, and another one rallying forward, or at least another one being produced. So they're all just kind of congregating back here. Note that the ghost can be good against these little bit of zealot run-bys, considering they do extra damage to light. He does just land EMPs on the zealots, so nothing too wild going on. Most importantly, you really don't want to lose your ghosts to these, so you can just go ahead and micro these back just to keep them alive a little longer. But they do deal with zealots okay. By the way, on the other side, Maru is just trying to get some positioning here with mines, trying to pick off the army the best he can. And like I said, this is not stuff that you should normally be doing, that Maru does. He just kind of breaks the rules because he's just way too good, so yeah, we're going to start to see the ghosts walking forward now. And now that the mines are cleaned up, this is going to be purely reliant on Maru's ghost control for the next little while. Of course, he still is mixing mines in here and there, but for the most part, it's really going to be all about the ghost EMPs. So let's watch this battle continue to develop and continue to mold into the point where we want to see it. Like we've talked about in the late game. Actually, I don't remember if we've done a late game video on TvP or not, but in either case, a lot of Vikings and a lot of ghosts are basically your late game army. So a high ghost count is really not a bad idea, as long as you don't throw them away. So as he starts to move in here, notice that the army of Zest has to recover, because he can start getting shots on the Nexus or shots on the probes, and the Zest army has to come forward in order to engage this, and that's exactly when you want to start EMPing. So you can start to seek forward with your ghosts a little bit, and as they walk through this small area, you can just start landing EMPs and just waiting for him to keep coming closer to you so you can continue to land those. So once again, Maru is forcing Zest to recover to a position that he wasn't ready for. So he's coming forward here. He can start landing EMPs at any point, and look at him now, just getting all these units clumped up right now. as Zest starts to retreat just a tiny bit. And it is in the same location we were talking about. So Maru is able to get some decent EMPs here. You don't want to just spam EMP if you don't have to, because he just landed one. It didn't hit everything that he needed to. You mostly want to try and hit the Templar if it's out to this stage, but hitting anything with EMP is still an okay usage of the Ghost. So again, he's trying to bait Zest forward by running forward, and then he'll move back and he'll select his Ghosts and move them forward. So the Ghosts are supposed to be protected the entire time by your army until you decide it's time to pull back and try to pull the Protoss forward. Once the Protoss gets pulled forward is when you can start landing these EMPs. You can even see one of the projectiles in the air about to land on the Stalkers, but this entire army right here, everything that I've selected is EMP'd right now. So as long as he stays out of storm range and he doesn't lose his Ghosts, he can continue to engage this. So he lands EMPs on everything. Now he stops and he fights. The mines burrow so he can get great shots with his mines, killing basically every single Zealot right there. And then from this point, there are still storms on the field, so he needs to be careful here. And this is when the Protoss is going to start seeking to trade out his Templar for Ghosts. Feedback is a very real thing. By this stage of the game, you really should have enough money and enough stuff churning that you can use scans rather than mules to figure out where his army is. So from this point forward, you need to constantly be scanning over his army to figure out where his units are so you know when and where to EMP. I want to actually kind of watch the rest of this from Maru's vision so we can see everything that Maru sees and kind of watch it unfold that way. So notice that he scans. This is everything that he can see. If he EMPs the army again, he can EMP the mothership core, so now he has no time warps. The Ghosts are fairly useless right now. Maybe he can grab the Observer, which he does. Going to be more EMPs and more mines coming down now. There are still storms out there, so he still needs to be careful about the storms. He can't be too aggressive. But again, notice how he's walking away with his army and walking forward with his Ghosts at the same time and trying to EMP the Templar when they try to chase. So this whole battle is just a back and forth battle of chicken and getting the other player to overcommit in one place or another so you can land EMPs or storms depending on which side of the battle you're on. So another EMP is going to come down here, a defensive storm from the Templars. Maru just snipes it with the Ghosts, and that's also a good spending of your energy. Again, this won't start to matter as far as the composition from Zest until he gets 2+ Colossus. So as long as he's keeping the Colossus count manageable, you really just need to worry about EMPing the Templar. So again, Maru backing off. Notice the sick EMP gets all over these Templar right now. One EMP won't do the job though, so if you're out of Ghost energy, it's a good time to just walk away and try to get them to run over mines, or maybe try to just go all the way home altogether and kind of regroup a little bit. Once your Ghost energy is down, you really can't afford to keep attacking. Notice the Vikings are starting to rally forward because the Colossus are starting to show themselves on the field. And because he has no Ghost energy, this is when storms can start to get really bad. But he still did get good trades here. And like I was talking about, this is exactly what you want to get out of Terran. You want to get trades to the point where you can trade your Ghost energy efficiently for bits and pieces of their army to the point where it's easy to kill it because it has no health. So Maru's up by 40 supply right now, only because of the EMPs he was getting and only because he wasn't throwing his units away to things like storms. The control here is the most important thing to note, though. It's really just making sure your Ghosts are kind of leading the charge when it's appropriate, and you're forcing the Protoss to be coming at you when you're landing your EMPs. Since he sniped that Observer, by the way, the mine shots can still deal a fair bit of damage. Zest realizes this and just blinks out of it, so pretty smart play there from Zest. Now that Maru has some more stuff coming forward, some more mines, a few more Ghosts are in production right now. I don't think they're quite ready. You can see it being attacked over there. It's the command center. But I think the work from the Ghost has pretty much already been done. There's not really that many Storm-ready Templar. He has a lot of Marauders right now and a decent number of Vikings. He's almost to the point where he could just plow through, and that's only because his initial fights were a lot better here. So Maru really doing a great job in this game. There might be one more important fight before this game ends, and that will involve Ghosts once again, so they're coming across the field. The philosophy is still the same. The philosophy is still all about making sure the Protoss is coming at you, preferably in a bad position so that you can land EMPs while they run at you. Still a Ghost sticking back here to try and deal with these Zealots. Also, I don't know if he has Cloak or not. No, he doesn't. So Cloak could be another really great resource to use here, because if you can ever cloak Ghosts and they don't have any detection, then you can EMP whatever you want. But Maru's still just trying to pick this apart a little bit. The Ghosts are starting to rally forward. Again, he's taken a little bit of Storm damage, and he can't get too aggressive against Storm like we've talked about in the other video, which was specifically designed to kill Storm. But now the Ghosts can EMP whatever they want. You should have a superior range. Notice he's scanning over and over to see what's over at the Protoss army. And now it's to the point where Zest, you need to be able to decompose, or rather figure out what's going on here. Zest only has 2 storms. There's really not much of a buffer army here. Maru can continue to be aggressive continually for basically the rest of this game because he's able to keep the Protoss's unit count very low in terms of the units that actually matter. So, still pushing forward here. Now he can see the Templar, so he knows where to hit with his ghosts. He knows he's pulling his ghost forward, and wham, he lands another EMP all over those Templar. So Maru is just crushing Zest in the Templar versus Ghost battles. And this is exactly the stuff that you want to shoot for. Now all of a sudden, Zest is broken. Maru can just stim forward and basically kill him at any point. So this is just absolutely fantastic ghost control. It's just running a clinic on how to control your ghost properly in these types of fights. So I hope you guys enjoyed that that video. We're going to go ahead and call that good since Zest is about to die. But I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I hope that at least gave you a good idea of what you're supposed to be seeking out with ghosts. I'll be making more videos in the near future, of course, and that'll be true for basically the rest of time. So yeah, check those out in the future. Subscribe to my channel; it really helps out a lot. And check down in the description for the video if you want to check out more Terran tutorial videos. Of course, also if you have any questions, just leave a comment. Other than that, I will see you guys very soon with more videos. Take care.